Welcome back to Worship at Home, week 91. This week we sit down with Mark Tregalis, our friend from church, and he tells us his experience with the mission trip in Zambia last year. Hope you enjoy. God bless.
Dark and all alone, growing comfortable. Are you too scared to move and walk out of this tomb? Buried underneath lies that you believe, safe and sound, stuck in the ground, too lost to be found. You're just asleep. It's time to leave. Come on and rise up, take a breath. You're alive now. Can't you hear the voice of Jesus calling us out from the grave like Lazarus? You're brand new. Our death couldn't hold you. Can't you hear the voice of Jesus calling us out from the grave like Lazarus? Rise up, rise up, out from the grave like Lazarus. When he said your name, the thing that filled your veins is more than blood. It's kind of love that washes sins away. Now the door is open wide, the stone's been rolled aside. The old is gone, the light has come, so come on and rise up. Take a breath, you're alive now. Can't you hear the voice of Jesus calling us out from the grave like Lazarus? You're brand new, power death couldn't hold you. Can't you hear the voice of Jesus calling us out from the grave like Lazarus? Rise up, rise up, out from the grave like Lazarus. He's calling us to walk out of the dark. He's given us new resurrected hearts. He's calling us to walk out of the dark. He's given us new resurrected hearts. Yeah, come on and rise up, take a breath. You're alive now. Can't you hear the voice of Jesus calling us out from the grave like Lazarus? You're brand new, power death couldn't hold you. Can't you hear the voice of Jesus calling us out from the grave like Lazarus? Rise up, rise up, out from the grave like Lazarus.
Romans 15:4. For whatsoever things were written aforetime, whatsoever things were written aforetime were written for our learning.
Well, welcome back, everybody. This week we're going to sit down with Mark Tregalis. Been wanting to do this for quite a while now. Mark and Kim have probably become some of our best friends at our church, so we've done a lot with them, got to know them through music and just hanging out and good fellowship. So, Mark, we'll just start off with, what brought you into the church?
You know, I grew up in rural America. So I grew up in a small town in Pratt, and actually grew up in the church there. When you say brought me into the church, is one of those things that I grew up in, and I remember at a certain point, Mom and Dad asking me if I wanted to be baptized, and at that point, I'd heard a lot of people have their conversion stories, and some of them were amazing, and for some reason it got in my head that I don't have a conversion story. And at that point in time, I said, I don't know that I'm ready to be baptized. And honestly, I think it probably goes back to, in that time frame, there was a lot of works-oriented type faith, and I think that it had been planted in my mind. I'm sure Satan probably put it there that, you're not good enough.
Right.
You're not good enough to be baptized. And so, I continued to go to church, and it really wasn't until college that attending church there and through different events, and Kim and I'd met Kim in church in Lawrence, and at that point we were talking with the pastor and doing premarital counseling, and he'd asked, have you been baptized? And I said, well, no, actually, no, I haven't. And I said, but I do believe it. And it was that point in 1994 that I got baptized in the fall of that year in the church, and it was really more confirmation of what I believed, and
right.
An outward confirmation, and not I think we all struggle, or at least I struggle from time to time, thinking I'm not really good enough for
Right.
this. Yeah.
It's easy to do.
Yeah, for sure.
Because we want to be better.
We do, yeah, and it's a progression. The fruits of the Spirit come out. I was talking today at work with a coworker about joy a little bit, and just that joy is really a gift from God. It's not, I think in America we think that, well, I'm going to buy this and it's going to make me happy.
Right.
I'm going to get this, going to do this, and it's going to make me happy. And yeah, they may get temporary happiness, but is it true happiness and joy? And I think really that's a gift from God.
So did you go to Kansas University then?
Yeah, I was attending University of Kansas,
That's
and for pharmacy, and once again, that's where I met Kim up there. Yep.
So you're a pharmacist?
Pharmacist, yep.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
How does that work for you?
So I worked retail for a period of time. So retail pharmacies receive prescriptions from providers and fill those prescriptions. And Kim always gives me a hard time. She jokes about, I just thought pharmacists counted pills. And she's like, now I know there's a lot more behind it. But in the retail setting, getting prescriptions from physicians, filling those prescriptions, reviewing patient profiles to look for drug interactions, counseling patients when they pick up their medications, side effects, things to look for, confirming that this is the medication that they were expecting for the condition that they're treating, is kind of the retail side of it. And then I transitioned to work hospital pharmacy in 2002. And that's a lot more clinical, a lot different job in a lot of ways. But we get orders that, what we call CPOE, or computerized physician order entry. They enter the orders, pharmacists review those orders against patient profile again, evaluating for drug interactions, allergies, appropriate dosing, appropriate dosing in regard to renal function is part of our job. Another subset of what we do is we're consulted to manage certain antibiotics like vancomycin, gentamicin, and then consulted to do anticoagulation dosing with warfarin. So a lot more clinical involved. we spend a lot of time though verifying physician orders as they come through.
It's a big responsibility.
Keeps us busy. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So you've lived in Kansas your whole life then?
Yeah. Born in Pratt, raised there, Lawrence, and then back to Wichita. So yeah.
Nice. Kansas is a nice place to live.
It is. There's a lot of beauty here. I don't think it's until you're away from here when you realize that the blue sky
Yes.
is really a big part of who you know, what you're around and what you see, and you miss it when you get into the woods.
Mhm. So was it 2 years ago you went on a mission trip, or was it last summer?
So we've been on a couple. So the African or Zambia mission trip was in 2023,
Okay.
and then in 2019 we'd done a trip to Puerto Rico.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
What was something that really stood out in your Zambia trip for you?
There was a lot. Yeah, I was kind of thinking about this today, knowing that you're going to be here, and it kind of stems actually back to the conversation I was mentioning earlier with joy.
Mm-hmm.
And I think in our culture, we try to place joy in conjunction with a lot of things, having things, doing things. But I think in this mission trip, we realized that joy can be anywhere, any place, and it's not about things. It's not about it's about relationships. It's about your walk with God. I think that it's probably one of the big things that stood out, because I saw a lot of people there that were experiencing a lot of joy that would be defined differently than probably how we would define joy in our American culture.
I bet.
Yeah. I think too, another thing that stood out to me, our first evening there with the church, and just once they started singing, and they're singing traditional Adventist hymns, and they're all hymns that we know, and it's just like, here we are halfway around the world, and we're with our brothers and sisters in Christ, singing the same hymns, and it was actually quite a moving moment at that point. Yeah.
And music's pretty powerful. It does that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So you have some pictures. Is that?
Yeah, I got some pictures, and I can hold it up if you like, and then I'll send some digitally
Okay,
too.
perfect.
Yeah. So this was a book that family put together of the trip, and there's quite a few here, but I'll just kind of go through a few. First one is just our family getting on the bus with Jim Lynch and Linda, and he had set up a bus for us to get up to Kansas City, and that was early June when we started the trip. It was very nice of them to give us those accommodations on the way up, but it was a 3-week trip. We spent 3 days traveling each way.
Wow.
So by the time you got there, you were a little tired.
I bet.
Tired from that. Saw a lot of amazing places along the way. Here quickly, this picture here was in Lusaka. This was the sunset,
Oh wow.
and it wasn't until kind of having been in Africa for a few days I realized that part of the reason they have such beautiful sunsets is they burn a lot of coal, and that just gives a color in the atmosphere. And a lot of people depend upon coal for heat and cooking. There's no gas ranges. There's
Right.
there's none of the conveniences that we're used to here. Another picture here, just stopping at a market. The markets were actually amazing, super colorful, lots of produce, and yeah, it was really good. And it was good. It was very good.
It wasn't shipped up from Mexico.
No, it was all fresh for sure. When we flew into Lusaka, we spent the night, and then we had I think it was a 10-hour bus ride up to Monza. And I don't know if you can see the roads here, but those are potholes.
Wow.
At this point in time, and this is a main road, and at this point in time, the bus driver had to slow down to like 10, 15 miles an hour
Wow.
to get through these. This particular area, I think, is a floodplain parts of the year, so that's why the roads were so bad. When we arrived to the school, they had just completed some new dorms on the men's side, and so our group had been given rooms to move into, and each room had 2 bunk beds, so it was perfect for the 4 of us. Students were super excited to visit with us. They wanted to know all about America and our culture, and wanted to know, when they heard that we had cold, they wanted to know about snow. And so we pulled some pictures and videos out of that. And
Probably something you don't see in Africa.
no, and they were just super amazed by it. And we went in June, which is actually winter time for them.
Oh, wow.
Temperatures, though, were amazing. It was 70, maybe 78. Sun was very intense, but we're running around in shorts, and they're running around in long pants, long sleeves, and jackets.
Really?
Because it's cold to them, yeah. Which made me think, I can't imagine how hot their summers are, for sure. It's, for them to think 72 is cold.
Yeah, you get acclimated.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, that first evening we spent a lot of time just talking with the students and answering questions and asking about them. And, I think that when we left there, I realized that these students really wanted education, and that in the men's dorms, there's in some of the dorm rooms, there's 2 students to a bed,
Really?
and 8 students to a room.
Wow.
And you think about, in our culture, that wouldn't be tolerated.
No.
Probably, but they are that dedicated to wanting to have an education that they're willing to
Wow.
do that, for sure.
How was their English? Were you able to communicate pretty well?
Yeah. English is actually the primary language in Zambia, and then there's, I believe there's 6 other tribal languages. I don't even want to say it because I'll get it wrong. But anyway, 6 other different languages. But English spoke very, very well. So our primary project actually was working on a perimeter wall for the school. And that's one thing that doing mission trips, growing up in Kansas, I don't think we're really used to having walls and fences and things around, because we're just so used to open space.
Right.
But they had started a perimeter wall for the school, and it served multiple purposes. Obviously it kind of helped with the security of the facility, but also was there to kind of guide students, where their boundaries are and where they're to stay. And so we spent our 10 days actually working on this wall. And it was all cinder block and mortar construction, and Warren Cowgill and here locally helped be one on the mission trip to help organize a team to help build this wall. And yeah, it was hard work. We got to see how concrete was mixed over there, or at least mortar, in the sense that we're used to a truck delivering
Right.
concrete or mixing it in a mixer here, but it was all mixed by hand, and they would dump out the cement mix and the sand, and the water came out of a drum of water, and then you just set through with shovels and mix it on the ground. And I did that for a few hours on a few days, and I'll tell you, it's hard work. Hard work for those guys.
Yes.
Yeah.
Stuff's heavy.
Yeah, it gets heavy after a while, for sure. And there was a gentleman, Felix, that got to know and talk with quite a bit when we were doing that. And it was fun to hear about his family, but that was his career, was mixing cement.
Wow.
Yep, for sure. Yeah, for a while we had to. We didn't have the truck, and I'll also do some of these pictures, but we didn't have a truck there to move cinder blocks. So I think our first day they had us moving cinder blocks by hand. And
Use like a fire line or whatever they
it
call it?
no, it was just like you'd pick up however many you could carry, and
Oh, man.
you would walk about. I don't know, trying to remember how far a walk it was, but 750. I was gonna say maybe 800 feet. I don't know.
Wow.
It was a good walk. Fortunately, the truck showed up, and we were able to move a lot of block with that. We had a really good group of support staff, a group that was preparing our meals for us, keeping us healthy, keeping us hydrated. And as I mentioned, even though it was wintertime, the sun was pretty intense in the afternoon. But towards the end of our trip, the students wanted to wanted to do a presentation. And so some of these students, they're all from all over the country and from different tribes. And so they organized presentations of some of their tribal dances.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and gave a video of that. And that was really, really fun to see and watch. They also had a Pathfinder group that they did a presentation as well, and their marching was very, very impressive.
Very cool.
Yeah. Their primary staple is, hopefully I say it right, but I think it's shima, and it's a corn-based kind of like grits,
Okay.
that sort of thing. Very common food for them, and sometimes 3 times a day. And at one point we thought, well, maybe we should do something fun for the students. Maybe we can, maybe we can collect enough money amongst us to order some pizza.
Oh, wow.
And so we found a local pizza place to make it for us, which turned out to be a challenge for Jim in the sense of if they had enough cheese to make pizzas for this many students. But ended up happening. The students, I think, thoroughly enjoyed it. We had probably a mild stampede
Wow.
to get to the pizza, but yeah, they definitely enjoyed it. The number of women from the Kansas-Nebraska Conference also worked on hygiene bags for the women and the female students, and so our group of women and Kim actually went and helped present these to the young women there, and that seemed to be a big need and a big help for them as well. So there were some pictures here of them passing those out. In Zambia, land rights are granted by tribal chiefs, and in Mwanza, they had been granted the land that they built their school on. And so Jim and the conference president had got an opportunity for our group to go meet the tribal chief. And that was really neat to hear about him. But they kind of work in conjunction with an elected government to govern the provinces and the areas. And I kind of thought that was just an interesting
Very
tidbit.
cool.
Yep. So you really don't own land
Wow.
in Zambia. The organization we went with was Give Back to Humanity, and that's something that Jim was part of and organized our local group to go there. We had people from Kansas, Colorado, Georgia,
Oh, wow.
and so we all met there, and team building project, right?
Yes.
Yeah. We did have a Sabbath afternoon where we went to some falls, pretty amazing waterfalls. Had a little enjoyment just jumping into that and just seeing the beauty there. The stars were wonderful,
Oh, I bet.
absolutely wonderful.
No city lights.
Yeah,
there.
no city lights, and saw constellations like the Southern Cross that you can only see in the Southern Hemisphere. And,
Oh, wow.
and there's a lot more stars out there than what we see around here. That's for sure.
That looks beautiful.
Yeah. in kind of the water plain flood area, a lot of fishing going on, a lot of boats made out of logs
Oh, wow.
that they're out there fishing on. And this is kind of the point in here that we're seeing that we, towards the end of our trip, we had a few days that we could go explore and visit. And there's I might have to turn this around for a second to look. Yeah, we were traveling down to Lusaka and then Livingstone, but there's an Adventist Riverside Farm Institute that we dropped by along the way, and they had bananas growing, and it was just a really beautiful campus. A lot of natural foods that they were growing there too, and so missionaries will come and spend some time there, learning to grow produce and provide health education to the locals and food sources and things like that. So it was really, really neat. One thing Jim had mentioned that he said we all had to do was go pet some lions. Kim was super, super nervous about it.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah, I was pretty stoked about it until it was time for my girls to go up there
Oh, boy.
and pet some lions. And then the father instincts kind of kick in, and so you're watching with intrepid heart. But that was,
what are you gonna do?
yeah, exactly. But it was really, really amazing, And Jim says, it's the only time in your life, except heaven, that you'll be able to go and pet
Right.
lions, And I thought that it was just really awesome to think about, all the animals in heaven that we'll be able to interact with
Wow.
and not have to worry for our lives,
Yes.
for sure. But yeah, there's some really neat pictures that we had here, interacting with them. Went to Victoria Falls, had a chance to see that. There's actually a kind of a rope bridge that you can walk across, that the rain comes on and off all the time because of all the mist that comes up from the bottom of the falls, and then it forms clouds and just rains.
Oh, wow.
It rains instantly. And it's just a small little area. Had a chance to zip line
Wow,
in that area too.
what an adventure.
Yeah, it was really neat. I think then kind of the end we had a chance to go to safari and just see all sorts of animals, giraffes, and
Wow.
hippos, and swimming elephants across the river, and yeah, it was really neat. But this was just kind of the last few days. But the whole trip was an amazing trip,
I bet.
and I think to meet the people, in their own country, and discuss with them, the things that are important to them, and you see that life can be hard, and some of these families, they were working 2 or 3 jobs in order to make sure that their kids could have an education. And I'm not sure if I mentioned the name, but Fordina Pandeli School is the name of the school. And it's 8th grade through 12th grade. And it's boarding school. And if I remember correctly, they're there for 3 months and off for a few weeks, and there for 3 months. But school all year round. And it's a system where government testing, and if you do well in the testing, you continue in your education. And if you don't, then it's time to find something else.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And but yeah, these students definitely are working hard. Fellowshipping with the students in their church, for evening fellowship or morning worship, and then Sabbath worship was really neat.
I bet.
Several hundred, people in there, and just the songs echoing throughout the church, and was really neat. And listening to some of the songs in their native tongues as
Wow.
well was neat to hear.
That's pretty cool. One of these days I would love to go on a mission trip.
You should do it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
money's always a factor for us, but I know it's probably a life-changing thing.
It is, and we took our whole family and I think the girls came back with a really different viewpoint of what's important and what's not important.
Right.
And yeah, you just see. I mean, you definitely see a culture that's evolving. I mean, every culture evolves, but
Right.
you know, heavily on agriculture. You know, a lot of hard work. We saw some women on the property there that were husking corn, and they spent the day husking a pile of corn.
Really.
And getting the kernels, off the cobs, and they had, I'm trying to remember how many bags they had. I think 6 or 7, good sized bags, and so it was 3 women and a full day's work, and I think each of those bags, they said would sell for 80 cents in U.S. dollars.
Wow.
Yeah, and yeah, just a lot of work.
Wow.
You know.
I don't want to really get off of that subject. It just sounds like a beautiful place to be. But in your life, thinking back on your life, are there any major things that God has helped you through?
Yeah, there is, and sometimes it's easier to look back than to see when you're in the middle of it.
Yes.
For sure. And sometimes I also think giving credit where credit is due sometimes is something we forget to do.
Yeah,
we
sure.
think that we made it happen.
Yeah.
But there's always one that I look back to, and that's actually when I was looking at potentially changing jobs from when I worked for Dillon's, and I was contemplating a couple of job opportunities at that point. And change is always hard, no matter what the change is. And I remember going into work that day, riding into work, and just really kind of struggling, with should I do this, should I not? And so I got into work, was opening the store. So at the beginning, it was just me, and kind of thinking about it. And I said, God, I said, if this is a change that you want me to make, and you think it's something I should do, I need you to show me. And I made the mistake. I wouldn't say it was a mistake, but looking back, I was like, why would I ask it for this? I said, make this the worst day I've ever had at work. And I said, make this the absolute worst day I've ever had at work, to make it clear that I should be changing jobs. It was terrible. It went within about 10 to 15 minutes of that prayer, my day proceeded to spiral out of
Wow.
control. Yeah. And I would say that's when I look back at. I also look back at in Pratt, when I was growing up, I had gotten a part-time job working at the local McDonald's there. And when I hired on, I told them that I was, Seventh-day Adventist, Sabbath keeper, and that, I would prefer to keep my Sabbaths. And they said, yeah, that should be fine. And they said, and so they hired me, and I took the job. Well, that first summer there, the Miss Kansas pageant is held in Pratt.
Oh, really?
And so that weekend, I got the schedule they had that weekend, and they had me scheduled. And I went up to the manager and said, hey, which the manager was the owner's daughter, and the owner was pretty involved as well in the store. And I said, hey, I can't, it's Saturday, and I thought we had talked about, me not working. And she says, well, it's going to be really, really busy, and we need to have you here. And so I went home and kind of talked with Mom and Dad and praying about it, and finally told my parents, I think I'm going to go work at it, but I'm not going to clock in. And so I went and worked the day and helped them out. And it was later in the week when they were processing payroll, they came to me and said, hey, you didn't clock in on Saturday. And I said, yeah, I know. and I said, I did that intentionally. Well, you can't do that. And I said, well, I came to work to help you out, as a friend to help you out in your need. And so I'm not expecting to be paid for it. And that really spoke to them. And they said, well, we can't, we'll have to do something. And I said, well, you do what you feel like you have to do. But, and they never asked me to work, another Sabbath after that. And they were very helpful throughout my college years. They said, whenever you're back in town, if you want to work a few days over break, just let us know and show up. Yeah. So yeah.
Do you have any advice for younger people?
Oh wow. I've talked to parents who are sending kids off to college, and as you know, we have one in college now. And they also in these conversations, they hear that we went to KU, and they say, well, KU is a super liberal school. And I always tell people, I say, it's, you find what you're looking for. And if your kids are looking for the right things, they're going to be okay. They'll be fine. And so I guess, telling parents, have faith in your kids that they're going to be looking for the right things. And sometimes, maybe you'll need to guide and lead. But for youth in particular, I would say, set your priorities, work hard toward your goals. Don't be afraid to work. And keep what's important in front of you. There's going to be days that you may not feel like going to church.
Right.
And it may be those days that you probably need to be there.
Yeah, for sure.
And not to say that you always have to be there, but, remembering that, it is the Sabbath and observing the creation that's been made, the time set aside, serving your Creator. And then I think, you keep those things in perspective. You'll look back and see how God has governed in your life. And yeah, I guess that's probably where I'd leave it at this point.
Well, that's good advice. I think that's good advice for adults, too.
Yeah.
Well, Mark, I really appreciate your time. And I look forward to spending more time with you guys.
Yeah, we look forward to it, too.
All right, well,
Yeah.
thank you.
Love, like the skies are wide, crashing down to bring the world to life. Hope came dancing on an empty grave. Death has lost its rule to the King of grace. Be the crown in the light and sound. Be the fire burning inside out. Be the love casting out all fear. Let your name rule the atmosphere. Love, like the skies are wide, crashing down to bring the world to life. Hope came dancing on an empty grave. Death has lost its rule to the King of grace. Be the crown in the light and sound. Be the fire burning inside out. Be the love casting out all fear. Let your name rule the atmosphere. Jesus. Sin and all its shame deleted, death and all its chains defeated, and the light we see is Jesus, and the air we breathe is freedom, and the sound it knows no fear. Your love rules the atmosphere. The love casting out all